Hello everyone, welcome to another Gamemaker tutorial. We're just doing a very simple and small one today, and today I thought it would be fun to talk about how to use the Panorama filter effects layer. So in Gamemaker Studio, there's a way that you can make an effect like this, a panorama. You can take any image you like and create this very cool panorama effect. And so I wanted to explain how you can set that up and how you can put that in your game and just kind of use it for whatever reason you want to use it for. So let's go into how that's set up. So first what we've got to do is we've got to set up a room with a panorama layer in it. So if we look here, as you can see, so basically what you're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a new filter or effect layer, and I named mine Panorama. So as you can see here, Panorama. And what you do when you create it, there will be this option to change the effect type. And you're going to scroll all the way down. Right beneath outline and old film here is Panorama background. And that will pop up with this image here. Now, if you want to change the image, so like you can change some things here. So like right here, this is where you change the view direction. As you can see, it's spinning around a little bit there. Here, Y, you can change the Y direction that you're looking. So you can change that about a little bit. Perspective here, I'm not entirely sure. Oh, right. That just kind of zooms in and out and stuff like that. So I left mine at 1. No, let's do there. Yeah, that looks good. Something along those lines. And then cylinder, so this changes, like if you imagine that the panorama is on the inside of a cylinder, this kind of changes how noticeable that cylinder is. So we can go ahead and play around with that. And then the panorama texture. So here's where you can change it to various sprites. So this right here, what I have right now, this kind of European looking plaza kind of deal, that's the default texture. I have loaded up some other sprites here. So I just created a few sprites. So what do we have? So we have this empty playroom. That's an option that we can set it to. And then I also looked up a FNAF office, Five Nights at Freddy's office. So we have this kind of like basic setup here. And then we have this like simple outdoor scene. And then this is supposed to be like a scene in Minecraft that you can turn into HDRI. So this is called an HDRI. Let me show you how I got this look so that you can look up your own panorama shots for when you want to make stuff. Alright, so I am on this website called Polyhaven. It's a public 3D asset library. And you can actually find an option for panorama options for a game on HDRIs. So if you click here, as we can see, so like let's go this indoor one. So let me see, what's a good option? Church meeting room, that looks lovely. So as you can see, this here is set up perfectly so that you can use it as an HDR, as a panorama view. So this has like all the little like, it has that kind of effect to it so that it'll work as a panorama. So you can download it from here. Make sure that the licensing, if you're going to release a commercially viable game, just be sure to check the license here. This says that you can use it for any purpose, including commercial. So this one's free to use for any purpose. So what you can do is you can hit download. Generally, that will download as a EXR file, which is more for like something like Blender or something like Maya, like more for 3D, actual real 3D objects. We just want like this image right here. So generally what I do is I click thumbnail or preview, and then you can save this image as, and generally it'll save as a PNG file. So that's an option for just how to download panorama photos. You can just use Google image search to find others. So that's just an option. Alright, then back in Gamemaker here, you do have to set up the file a little bit. So generally, if you try to set an image, it'll give you a warning. These images are very, very large. So generally, it asks you to change the texture settings in the sprite and hit separate texture page. So that will make sure that there aren't like any weird texture artifacts, or that the game's memory is handling this large sprite very well. So what we're going to do is, in my room, I've set up a single object. So if we go to instances, we can click on this here, and I call this obj underscore background controller. For each game that you make, you might want to choose something a little bit different, but this is how I'm controlling the background. So we go here, and what we're going to do, so basically what we need to do is we need to set, we're going to try to change the panorama's X and Y in our code. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up an array for that. So this will be the panorama X, and this will be the panorama Y. And then this speed variable is just how fast we can scroll around the screen. So let's see how we do this. So first what we're going to do is we're going to get the window center, and we're going to check how far away the mouse X and Y is compared to that window center. There we go, now we can see it better. So this will get the center of the window, this will get the mouse X and Y according to that window, and then this is going to be the distance. So this will check the distance from the mouse X and Y. So basically this checks the distance of the mouse X from the middle of the window, and this will check the distance of the mouse Y from the center of the window. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to check, hey, if this is greater than 200, so this is basically our dead zone, where in the center of the window the camera won't move at all. And so if it's less than the width, then that means that our mouse X is to the left of our window. Move to the left, so we'll change the X part of our panorama's X position to the left. And if it's more than the center piece, then we go to the right. And then for the width, it's the exact same thing. So this is our dead zone, 200 pixels. If it's less than that, then we're going to go up. That means it's less than the center point. If it's more than the center point, then we're going to go down, so we're going to add speed to it. And then this is how we set it up. So we have to edit the fx struct using this function. So first we're going to get the layer ID. This is the name of the layer, so I named mine Panorama, so that's very simple. And then this is the name of it, Panorama. Then we're going to get the layer underscore get fx function. So this is just supposed to get the struct that contains the information. And fx underscore set parameter. So let's go ahead and look at this in the Gamemaker manual. Alright, perfect. So it says here that this function is used to change the value of a parameter in the given fx struct. So we can use this to edit the various effects inside all of our effects layers. And if we look around here, alright, so I looked up here fx types and parameters in the Gamemaker manual, and here we can see these parameters for every single filter and effects layer in Gamemaker. So as you can see, this one here is for the blocks background, and here are some parameters we can plug in. So in Gamemaker, we can use the string of this, basically this text here, to edit something in this effect layer. So we're going to scroll down. There's lots of cool options here. So like there's this contrast filter effect layer, there's this desaturate filter effect layer, but we're going to look for specifically the panorama one. Here it is here. So this is the panorama background. As you can see, there's a couple of parameters we can edit here. So this is G underscore panorama direction. That is going to be basically the direction we're looking in our panorama layer. As you can see, it says it takes an array. So that's what we're going to have to plug in to change our panorama direction. And so there are other options here. So as you can see, there's the perspective and cylinder here. That's stuff that we were playing around with in the room. And then here's the panorama texture. So I believe, I'm not entirely sure, but I think this will actually change the texture of our panorama. These are all things that we can change through code. So let's go back to Gamemaker. All right, here we are. As you can see, I plugged in this parameter here. This is the parameter name, and this will change the view direction. So we have to plug in our fx struct. We plug in what kind of parameter we want to change. So in this case, it's the view direction. And then the value. So as I said before, it needs to be an array. That's what the manual said we need to plug in here. So here's our array. Here's our x. Here's our y. Here's where we change that x and y. And if we run the game, you can see that we are now able to control where we're looking in our panorama. So this is really, really cool. Obviously, this has a lot of applications. You can make a interesting like point and click game using this kind of thing. This could be a really cool horror game idea. This one here is the Minecraft one. As you can see, you could do something very similar to what Minecraft has going on, where you have this like kind of like background, scrolling background kind of thing for a menu. And of course, this kind of thing has a lot of application in like something like a Five Nights at Freddy's fan game. So as you can see, you can kind of like look around the office. There's probably a better panorama image than this one that I have right now. The reason I didn't include something like this in my tutorial for FNAF fan games is that figuring out how like the buttons would work and how the doors would work was very, very complex, but it's definitely doable. You might have to like layer another panorama image of like the door being open or the door closing or something like that in order to change it. But as you can see, there's a lot of interesting options here, like point and clicks, menus, horror games. There's a lot of options for using the panorama filter effects layer. You can get a very similar look, of course, with a shader. You can create a shader, and that will give you a little bit more flexibility. Like you can just get the exact same kind of look. But if you want to use the filter effects layer, if you want to have like a simple little effect, this is how you can do it, and this is how in your code. Just right here. So yeah, thank you so much for watching.